It started like any other morning. I walked into my favorite coffee shop, a cozy little corner spot where I could escape the noise of the world. As soon as I stepped inside, the familiar aroma of roasted beans and cinnamon greeted me. I placed my usual order, a double shot espresso, no sugar, and headed to my favorite table by the window. With my noise-cancelling headphones on and my playlist queued up, I was ready to dive into the day. Little did I know, this would be the last normal moment I would remember. The first song hit, and everything else faded into the background. The chatter of patrons, the hum of the coffee grinder, even the clinking of mugs, all drowned out. I was in my zone. It was as if the music synced perfectly with my thoughts, propelling me into a state of flow that I hadn't felt in months. I glanced at my phone. 9:15 a.m. The day was young, and I had a lot to get done. The hours passed, or at least I thought they did. I was so immersed in my work that I didn't notice anything around me. The words poured out effortlessly, my focus razor sharp. Occasionally, I would sip my coffee, the bitter warmth grounding me. It felt like I was in a bubble where time moved differently, or maybe didn't move at all. I dismissed the thought as just being in the zone. Eventually, I felt the strain in my eyes and the slight ache in my back. Time to take a break, I thought. I reached for my phone to check the time, but the screen was blank. Dead battery. That was odd. I was sure I had charged it overnight. Shrugging it off, I stretched, packed my things, and prepared to head home. That's when I noticed something strange. The cafe was empty. Not just quiet, but completely deserted. The once bustling tables were bare, chairs neatly tucked in, as if no one had been there all day. Even the barista counter was unmanned, the machine silent. I called out, "Hello, is anyone here?" My voice echoed faintly, but there was no response. A creeping unease began to settle in my chest. I pushed open the cafe door and stepped outside. The air was sharp and cool, but the world didn't feel quite right. The streetlights flickered to life as dusk set in. That's when I noticed the first real difference. Everything looked unfamiliar. The shop across the street, which used to sell vintage records, was now a sleek electronics store. The bakery next door had been replaced with a modern fitness studio. Even the cars parked along the curb seemed strange. Sleek, futuristic designs I'd never seen before. I pulled my jacket tighter as I walked down the street, trying to shake the growing sense of unease. My steps quickened, and I couldn't help but glance around nervously. The people on the sidewalks didn't look at me. They were absorbed in their own world. Faces, illuminated by strange devices I didn't recognize. Even their clothing seemed off, subtly different, like fashion had taken a leap forward while I wasn't paying attention. I checked my watch, 7:45 p.m. That couldn't be right. I'd arrived at the cafe at 9 a.m. Even if I had lost track of time, there was no way I'd been there for over 10 hours. My watch must be broken, or maybe I had simply lost myself in work longer than I realized. Still, the pit in my stomach told me something wasn't adding up. Confused, I knocked on the door. A woman I didn't recognize opened it. She looked at me with a mix of confusion and caution, as though she didn't expect anyone at this hour. "Can I help you?" she asked. I stammered, trying to explain that this was my apartment, but she cut me off with a slight frown. "I'm sorry, but we've lived here for 2 years. Are you sure you have the right place?" Her words hit me like a thunderclap. 2 years. My mind reeled. I had just been here this morning, hadn't I? I stumbled back, my head spinning. "No, this is my apartment. I've lived here for years," I insisted, though my voice cracked under the weight of my uncertainty. The woman's expression softened slightly, as if she felt sorry for me. "I don't know what to tell you," she said. "We moved in 2 years ago. Maybe you should check with the landlord." She hesitated, then closed the door gently but firmly, leaving me standing in the hallway with my heart racing. 2 years. The words echoed in my mind, louder with each repetition. It didn't make sense. How could 2 years have passed in what felt like hours? I fumbled for my phone again, forgetting it was dead, and cursed under my breath. My thoughts raced as I tried to piece it together. Had I hit my head? Was this some kind of elaborate prank? But nothing explained the unfamiliar streets, the strangers in my home, or the deep sense of disorientation clawing at me. I sat on the building steps, staring at the sky. Even that looked different, strangely vibrant, with a faint, shimmering hue I didn't remember. It was like the world had subtly shifted while I wasn't looking. The air felt colder too, biting through my jacket in a way it never had before. My mind clung to one desperate idea. Maybe I could find someone I knew, someone who could confirm that this was all a mistake. I headed to the only place that came to mind, my best friend Marcus's apartment. It wasn't far, just a few blocks away. As I walked, I noticed more oddities. The streetlights cast an unfamiliar bluish glow, and the billboards advertised products I'd never heard of. Even the rhythm of the city seemed different. Slower, quieter, yet somehow heavier. Every step I took felt like it carried the weight of 1,000 unanswered questions. When I reached Marcus's building, I hesitated. What if he didn't recognize me? What if he wasn't even there? I shook off the thought and rang the buzzer. After a long pause, a voice crackled through the intercom. "Who is it?" Relief flooded me. His voice was unmistakable. "Marcus! It's me!" I said, trying to sound casual, though my heart pounded in my chest. There was a long silence. "Me who?" he finally asked, his tone guarded. My stomach dropped. "It's me, man. Don't mess around, it's me." Another pause. Then, "I think you've got the wrong person." The intercom clicked off. I stared at the door, my hands trembling. Marcus, my closest friend, didn't even remember me. I banged on the door, shouting his name, but there was no response. Defeated, I slumped against the wall. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and fear. How could this be happening? It felt like the entire world had conspired to erase me, to replace my life with something unrecognizable. But why? And how? I wandered aimlessly after that, not knowing where else to go. Every street I turned down seemed foreign. Every face I passed unfamiliar. I was a ghost in a city that had moved on without me. The questions kept piling up. Had I been in a coma? Was this some kind of elaborate simulation? Or was I losing my grip on reality entirely? As night fell, I found myself back at the coffee shop. It looked the same as it had that morning, yet somehow different, almost as if it had aged along with the rest of the world. I pressed my face to the glass, hoping for a clue, a sign, anything that could explain what had happened. But the interior was dark and lifeless, just like the streets around me. That's when I saw it. A single scrap of paper taped to the door. It fluttered in the breeze, catching the faint glow of a nearby streetlight. I pulled it off and read the words scrawled in messy handwriting. Time moves differently when you're not paying attention. My blood ran cold. It wasn't an answer, but it was a warning. A cryptic reminder of how easily life can slip away when we're not looking. And as I stood there, clutching the note, I couldn't help but wonder, had I lost 2 years, or had the world simply decided to leave me behind?